In September 2023, a team of archaeologists in southeastern Turkey was excavating a site that most people had never heard of. And then they uncovered a face. Not a symbol, not a rough outline. A face, carved from stone, 2.3 meters tall, human in its proportions, with features that someone had clearly, carefully intended to make recognizable. It had been sitting underground for approximately 11,000 years. The site is called Karahan Tepe. You probably haven't heard of it. That's about to change. Let's start with what this place is and why it matters, and then get into the part that keeps archaeologists up at night. Karahan Tepe sits in the Tek Mountains of southeastern Turkey, about 46 kilometers east of Göbekli Tepe. If you've watched our Göbekli Tepe video, you know what that name means. If you haven't, the short version. Göbekli Tepe was, until recently, the oldest known monumental structure on Earth. Built by hunter-gatherers around 9,600 BCE, thousands of years before the pyramids, before writing, before the wheel. It was supposed to be the beginning of the story. Karahan Tepe may be older. The site was first noticed in 1997 when a survey archaeologist found shaped stones poking out of a farmer's field. For 20 years it sat in a database, largely unexamined. Then, in 2019, serious excavation began. And what came out of the ground didn't simplify the picture of human prehistory. It completely rearranged it. Here's what makes Karahan Tepe different and genuinely strange. At Göbekli Tepe, the builders quarried limestone pillars from a site 500 meters away, transported them, and erected them. Remarkable enough. At Karahan Tepe, some of the pillars were never quarried at all. They were carved from the bedrock itself, the surrounding rock cut away, leaving the pillars standing in place as if it had always been there. Nobody fully understands why. There are also structures that researchers have described as ritual pools, carved basins connected to the enclosures, and carved imagery that goes further than anything found at Göbekli Tepe in its explicit representation of the human form, including phalluses. We'll come back to that. And then, in 2023, the face, a 2.3 meter carved human statue found in situ in one of Karahan Tepe's main ritual structures. Nearby, a carved vulture. Both date to approximately 9,000 BCE. That's not mythology. That's not embellishment. That's what came out of the ground. Only about 5% of Karahan Tepe has been excavated. This is the part of the story where we need to be careful about what the evidence actually shows and honest about where it runs out. So let's go through it properly. Karahan Tepe sits on a limestone ridge in the Tek Mountains, 46 kilometers east of Göbekli Tepe. Same province, same geological character, same general period. The region is now farmland and scrub. 11,000 years ago it was something else entirely. And what that something was is still being worked out. One thing that's immediately clear from the geography: whoever chose this location chose it deliberately. High ground, long sight lines in every direction. Not easy to reach, not practical for everyday habitation. Chosen apparently for reasons that had nothing to do with convenience. The T-shaped pillars at Karahan Tepe are broadly similar to those at Göbekli Tepe. Massive, carved limestone, arranged in enclosures. But there's a fundamental difference in how some of them were made. At Göbekli Tepe, the builders quarried limestone from a site 500 meters away. Cut it, shaped it, moved it, erected it. The logistics of that alone, moving 10 to 20 ton stones across uneven terrain, with no wheels, no draft animals, is staggering. At Karahan Tepe, some of the pillars were never quarried at all. The builders found a limestone outcrop, and instead of cutting stones from it and moving them, they carved the pillars in place, cutting away the surrounding rock, leaving the columns standing, still rooted to the living bedrock. The pillar is the mountain. Nobody has a clean explanation for why they chose this approach. It has different practical trade-offs. You avoid the transport problem, but you're constrained to build wherever the bedrock allows. It may reflect a different relationship with the site itself, or a different tradition, or something we don't have a category for yet. The evidence doesn't tell us. Like Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe has circular and oval enclosures, rooms or courtyards, defined by rings of pillars with a central pair standing tallest. The best documented of these is called Structure AB, roughly 12 meters across, with a central pair of T-shaped pillars and smaller pillars around the perimeter. If you've seen the images of Göbekli Tepe's enclosure D, the layout will feel familiar, but the carved content is different. At Göbekli Tepe, the dominant imagery is animal: foxes, vultures, snakes, scorpions, cattle. Stylized arms appear on some pillars, suggesting the pillars themselves might represent beings of some kind. But the overwhelming visual language is zoomorphic. At Karahan Tepe, the balance shifts. Human forms are more explicit, more prominent, more detailed. There are carvings of what appear to be human heads, human torsos, human body parts in isolation. And there are carved phalluses, multiple in various contexts, that have no equivalent in the known Göbekli Tepe corpus. Some researchers interpret this as evidence of a different ritual focus: fertility, masculine identity, ancestor representation. Others are more cautious, pointing out that interpreting prehistoric symbolism through the lens of modern cultural categories is a trap archaeologists fall into constantly. What the carvings meant to the people who made them, the evidence doesn't tell us. In September 2023, the excavation team announced the find that changed the conversation about Karahan Tepe. In Structure AB, embedded in the floor, they found the carved head and upper torso of a human figure, 2.3 meters tall, detailed enough that the face is recognizable as a face. Not a schematic representation, but something with deliberate attention to human likeness. Nearby, a carved vulture. The statue dates to approximately 9000 BCE, which puts it roughly 3,000 years before the earliest cities in the ancient Near East. We're used to thinking of figurative art, representations of the human form, as something that developed with civilization, writing, cities, organized religion. But Karahan Tepe is pushing that assumption back, hard. People were making this 11,000 years ago. Here's where it gets genuinely contested. The current radiocarbon dates for Karahan Tepe overlap broadly with Göbekli Tepe, roughly 10,000 to 8,500 BCE. They were built in the same general period. But some researchers, looking at the stratigraphy, the layering of deposits, and the style of the stone tools, have argued that Karahan Tepe may have occupation phases predating Göbekli Tepe's earliest layers. If that's right, the origin story changes. Göbekli Tepe is no longer the beginning. It's part of a tradition that may have started somewhere else. That argument hasn't been settled by radiocarbon evidence yet. Better sampling, better precision, better context. That's what the next phase of excavation needs to deliver. Until then, we don't know which came first. Let's be clear about something. There are questions that more excavation will answer. The full dating picture, the complete extent of the structures, the range of the iconography across parts of the site we haven't touched yet. And then there are questions that the physical record may never be able to answer, regardless of how much more we excavate. Questions about meaning, about belief, about why. Both types are present at Karahan Tepe, and both deserve to be taken seriously. This is the question that archaeologists keep coming back to. It's not just a technical curiosity. Choosing to carve from bedrock rather than quarrying and transporting stones is a fundamentally different relationship with the landscape. You are not bringing stone to the site. You are making the site itself into the structure. Does that reflect a belief that the rock itself was sacred? A practical response to the local geology? a distinct tradition that evolved separately from whatever produced Göbekli Tepe. There is no parallel in the archaeological record that cleanly explains it. The question remains open. The shift in iconographic emphasis from animal-dominant at Göbekli Tepe to more explicitly human-focused at Karahan Tepe is one of the most discussed features of the site, and nobody has a consensus explanation. Option 1. The two sites had genuinely different ritual functions. Göbekli Tepe was about the animal world, hunting, the natural order, the boundary between human and non-human. Karahan Tepe was about something else: human identity, ancestors, the self. Option 2. This reflects a timeline. If Karahan Tepe's later phases post-date some of Göbekli Tepe's construction, maybe the iconographic shift represents an evolution, the symbolic program changing over time. Option 3. Regional variation. Different communities sharing a broad architectural vocabulary expressing different concerns. The interpretation remains uncertain. That's not a failure of archaeology. That's what honest archaeology looks like when it's working at the edge of what it knows. Karahan Tepe has carved basins, shallow pools, some cut from bedrock, associated with the enclosure structures. Water in ritual contexts appears across many cultures in many periods. Purification, fertility, boundaries between states, living and dead, sacred and profane. But all of those frameworks come from cultures with written records, with oral traditions that survived. At Karahan Tepe, in 9000 BCE, we have none of that. We have the basins. We have the context they were found in. We're working from analogy with cultures we don't fully understand. What the pools meant, entirely beyond our current reach. About 5% of Karahan Tepe has been excavated. Ground-penetrating radar shows there is a great deal more below the surface. More structures, more pillars, more of whatever is down there. The most important discoveries at this site may not have happened yet. That's not a promotional line. That's an observation about the current state of the evidence. Given what the first 5% produced, the bedrock pillars, the ritual pools, the 2023 statue, the honest response to, what's the rest of the site like, is, we genuinely don't know, and we won't for years. Here's where the story gets bigger, because Karahan Tepe isn't an anomaly, it's part of something. In 2021, the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism launched a project called Taş Tepeler, Stone Hills in Turkish. The goal: systematically investigate a cluster of pre-pottery Neolithic sites across southeastern Turkey that had been identified but largely left unexcavated. What they found changed the picture. As of the most recent reports, at least 12 related sites have been confirmed across a region of roughly 200 square kilometers. Several are now under active excavation. All date to broadly the same period, the 10th and 9th millennia BCE. All show monumental stone construction. All appear to have had ritual or ceremonial functions. This is no longer the story of one extraordinary site. This is the story of a network. About 50 kilometers west of Göbekli Tepe, a site called Saybirch has produced something that genuinely stopped the field. A carved limestone bench, found in 2021, with a scene. A human figure flanked by a bull and a leopard, in what appears to be a confrontational or ritual relationship. The figures are in action. Something is happening between them. This is the oldest known narrative relief carving in human history. Not a symbol, not a pattern. A story, cut into stone, approximately 11,000 years ago. We have no idea what the story is, but someone needed to tell it. Needed to tell it in stone, at scale, in a location that appears to have been used for collective ritual. That need, the impulse toward narrative, is as human as anything we know about ourselves. When Göbekli Tepe was the only site of its kind, the question was manageable. How did one group of pre-agricultural people build one extraordinary structure? Hard, but answerable in principle. With 12 or more sites across 200 square kilometers, all related, all from the same period, the question is harder and more interesting. What kind of society maintained a network of monumental ritual sites for thousands of years, without cities, without writing, without, as far as we know, formal political structures? A network requires connections, shared vocabulary, the transmission of knowledge, technique, meaning, across communities and generations. The T-shaped pillar appears at multiple sites. The enclosure form appears at multiple sites. The carved iconography shares enough common elements to suggest something like a tradition, a set of shared understandings that persisted across space and time. Some researchers have called this the world's first civilization. Not civilization in the sense of cities and bureaucracy, but civilization in the sense of a shared symbolic world, a shared way of marking and inhabiting the landscape, a shared sense of what mattered. That characterization is contested. It may be too strong, but it's not obviously wrong. Were these sites built by the same community? By related communities who shared a tradition? By communities in ritual alliance, something like pilgrimage centers that served a wider population? Did people travel between these sites? Were they contemporary, or did the tradition migrate across the region over time? The architectural similarities suggest a shared vocabulary. The differences, Göbekli Tepe's animal focus, Karahan Tepe's human emphasis, Sayburch's narrative relief, suggest the vocabulary was used differently in different places. Like regional dialects of a language we're only beginning to learn, Karahan Tepe has attracted alternative interpretations. It always does with sites like this. Lost advanced civilizations, secret knowledge, technologies we don't understand. The argument usually runs, this is too impressive, too sophisticated, too deliberate to have been built by people we'd call primitive. Let's look at why that argument doesn't hold up, and why the actual evidence is more interesting than it needs to be. The stone tools found at Karahan Tepe are exactly what you'd expect from the pre-pottery Neolithic. Flint blades, stone hammers, obsidian from sources that can be geologically traced to specific locations in Anatolia, which tells us these communities had long-distance exchange networks, not that they had advanced technology. No metal, no advanced materials, no anomalies. What they built with those tools is extraordinary, but remarkable doesn't mean impossible. It means we underestimated what motivated, organized human beings with stone tools are capable of. We keep making that mistake. Ancient DNA from pre-pottery Neolithic populations in southeastern Turkey shows local continuity, no genetic discontinuity, no evidence of an intrusive population arriving and building these sites. The people who built Karahan Tepe appear to be the same people who lived in this region before and after. If a more advanced outside group had built these sites and then disappeared, we'd expect a genetic signal. There isn't one. Karahan Tepe, like Göbekli Tepe, shows clear development over time. Older layers tend to be more elaborate. Newer layers are smaller, simpler. That's what a human tradition looks like. It starts strong, it's maintained, it gradually changes, it eventually ends. It is not what you'd expect if an advanced civilization had built the early phases and then vanished. You'd expect the opposite, the later, presumably less capable inheritors building simpler things, the early phases representing the pinnacle. But the early phases at these sites are the pinnacle, which means the people who built them were the most capable builders, which means they were the original builders, local people, pre-agricultural, working with stone tools, building things that 11,000 years later still have no close parallel. Karahan Tepe is excavated by Necmi Karul at Istanbul University in collaboration with the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism. The findings are published in peer-reviewed journals. The debates within the field about dating, about the relationship between sites, about the interpretation of the iconography are conducted openly. The uncertainty in this video is not the uncertainty of suppressed knowledge. It's the uncertainty of a genuinely hard problem that no one has fully solved yet. That's not a conspiracy. That's archaeology at the edge of what it knows. Pre-agricultural human societies in southeastern Turkey, around 9,000 to 10,000 BCE, were capable of sustained monumental construction, elaborate symbolic representation, and the maintenance of a shared architectural tradition across a network of sites spanning hundreds of square kilometers. That was not supposed to be possible, according to what we thought we knew about how human society developed. The evidence says otherwise. That's remarkable enough. It doesn't need anything added. The question of whether Karahan Tepe predates Göbekli Tepe is still open. The stratigraphic arguments for an earlier origin have been made by serious researchers and haven't been dismissed. Better radiocarbon dating, more samples, better stratigraphic control will eventually resolve this. If Karahan Tepe is older, then Göbekli Tepe is no longer the beginning of the story. It's a chapter in a story that started somewhere else. The origin point shifts, and that matters because origin points shape how we tell the whole story of early human complexity. The Sayburch relief, a human figure, a bull, a leopard, in a scene that appears to be telling a story, raises a question that extends well beyond the individual site. Narrative representation is something we associate with the cognitive and cultural capacities of fully modern humans. We find it in cave painting. We find it at Sayburch at 11,000 BCE in stone. The question isn't whether people at this time were capable of narrative thought. They clearly were. The question is, what drove them to represent those narratives monumentally? What was it about the social and ritual world of these communities that made carving stories in stone, at scale, in places that appear to have served collective purposes, something they needed to do? That question is entirely beyond our current reach, and it's one of the most interesting questions in all of archaeology. The Taş Tepeler project is ongoing. Several sites are in early stages of excavation. GPR surveys have identified potential structural features at locations not yet touched by a trowel. Given what the past 5 years produced, the 2023 statue, the Sayburch relief, the ongoing revision of the relationship between sites, there is no reasonable basis for thinking the next discoveries will be less significant. The most important discoveries in this region may not have happened yet. In 1997, a survey archaeologist noticed shaped stones in a farmer's field in southeastern Turkey. 22 years later, a team began to excavate. 4 years after that, a 2.3-meter carved human face came out of the ground, the oldest known monumental anthropomorphic sculpture in human history. Made by people with no writing, no cities, no metal, and apparently no limit on what they were willing to build. I think about this from Istanbul, a city that sits on 8,000 years of continuous settlement, where every construction site hits a Byzantine wall or an Ottoman foundation. Karahan Tepe is 5% excavated. I wonder how much of Istanbul we actually know. The site is still being excavated. The debates are still unresolved. The questions are still open. What's in the other 95% of this hill? The evidence suggests we haven't seen the last of it. The investigation continues. If you want to know what the evidence shows next and where it ends, join the excavation. Tell me in the comments, which collapsed civilization should we examine next?